Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Likes Books. And today I am doing the Mid-Year Book Freakout Tag 2019. I've done this book tag every single year, I think, since I've been on BookTube. I don't know. I'm almost positive I did it last year, but I do so many book tags over here that I'm almost positive that I did it last year. And it's a really fun book tag because it kind of like gets you thinking about like where you're at and where you want to be and all that kind of stuff. And if you watch my videos on a regular basis, what you know is that I always set a very, very high Goodreads goal. High for me, which is 100 or 101, and I never come anywhere near it. This year, I have only read, I think, 20 books, and so actually look, because I was just on my Goodreads challenge, because that's where I'm going to find my answers for this. I have read currently 20 out of 100 books this year, so I am not anywhere near my Goodreads challenge, and I'm letting myself down fiercely, but I'm going to catch up, and I'm going to read 100 books. I know I can do it. So anyway, I'm going to get right into this. The first question is, best book you've read so far in 2019? And this is really hard for me because I have read so many really, really, really good books. But I have to say that the number one book that I have recommended to the most people, the book that really just has sat with me and I thought about over and over and over again, is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It is by far probably one of the best books I've read in the last 5 years. I mean, it is so fantastic. It's so different than what I expected. It's so out of the norm. It's so well done. I thought the language was beautiful. I thought the message was important. I thought the mystery behind it, the intrigue was so well done. And it was, to me, just a 5 out of 5 stars. It was fantastic. The thing is, I've had several books this year that I've read that are really that good, but there are so many different things, like Recursion by Blake Crouch, which I just read. You know, and had I not read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I would say it is my favorite book. And I think when I did my review of it, I even said that it was better to me than the Evelyn Hugo book. But they're so different. It's like, it's really hard to compare them. So I have to go on what is the book that I've recommended the most to people, and that is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Okay, so let's get into the next question. Number 2, best sequel you've read so far in 2019, and this is really easy for me because I'm currently reading Pines, which is the sequel to, or I'm currently reading Wayward, which is the sequel to The Pines by Blake Crouch, which they made a TV series about called Wayward Pines. I just did my review of The Pines. But the only other, I think, the only other sequel that I read this year is, hold on, The Vanishing Stair by Maureen Johnson. It is a Truly Devious number 2. And if you are not reading the Truly Devious series, I don't know what is wrong with you. It is fantastic. It is so different than any young adult that I've read before. It is so well done. The characters are so well developed. The main character, Stevie, is probably one of my favorite characters I've ever read in my entire life. And it's about this boarding school where all of these kids go that have like different talents in certain areas, and some of them are very scientifically minded and some of them are very artistic. And Stevie goes because of her investigative detective skills, and it's just such a creative new idea. But it goes back and forth between like now and like I think the 30s or 40s, and it's just really interesting to read. And yeah, it's one of the greatest series I've ever read. Okay, let's get back to the questions. I'm going back and forth between my Goodreads challenge and YouTube. So, number 3, new release you haven't read yet but want to. I really want to read Christine's book that just came out this year. You know, I think that it's really, really important that we push other booktubers' books, no matter if that's somebody that we avidly follow or not. And I was just actually sitting outside because I was like looking through Twitter, and like Natasha had like tweeted something out, and I was like, you know what, I need to read Christine's book. I haven't read that yet. And that is going to be one of the books that I read this year, that I'm going to deliberately read. And there's a lot of booktubers out there that, you know, like I just bought Brave Like Lily by Richard. I can't think of Richard's last name. I'm sorry, but I will be doing the review on here. He has changed his name so many times on YouTube. It was like Richard's Media Geek, Richard's Book Nook, and all these kinds of things. So anyway, I just bought that on Amazon. And I think as booktubers, it's really important for us to, you know, support other people's books that are booktubers. Because I think at the end of the day, for many of us, that's our dream, is to be a writer. That's why we love reading books. And so why wouldn't we support our own, you know? And I think that that's important. So I'm going to read Christine's book. That's probably the new one that came out this year that I really want to read. Oh, I also want to read 9 Perfect Strangers by Liam O'Riordan, but my best friend read it and she said it was horrible. So I don't know, but I do really want to read that. Okay, number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. You know, I don't really ever know what new releases are coming out. I never know, like, what's the next book that's going to come out. I do know that there was supposed to be a sequel to Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Eilier Sines. I think that's been pushed back. I don't think that's coming out this year. I don't really keep up with what are the newest releases that are coming out. So I don't know. Like, I mean, I know that's horrible as a booktuber that I should know those things, but I just don't. I, you know, screenshot a lot of things that I see coming out. I will tell you that if you had asked me this 2 weeks ago, I would have told you that my next favorite release that was, now I have to go into Audible. Okay, my next favorite release that was coming out was going to be, I think it's called Don't Look Twice or Don't Look Behind the Door or something like that. Hold on a second. Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. I read, Final Girls, and I have the second book, but I haven't read it, like something about lies. And Lock Every Door looks really, really good, and so I was really excited about that, and I got it as soon as it came out. I was also extremely excited about the Recursion release by Blake Crouch. Okay, next question. Biggest disappointment. Well, that's easy for me. Let me pull up I made a mistake on my, where is this? It's not loading my reading challenge. Hold on a second. If I mess this up. Okay, I already know what that is. I just don't know the author. It's The Devouring Gray, and it is written by Christine Lynn Herman. I had read so many reviews, and I had seen so many booktube reviews, and people going on and on and on about The Devouring Gray, that I think almost that in my mind's eye, it was built up to something that it never could be. I think had I not seen that build up, I don't know that it would have been a letdown to me. And it wasn't a letdown. It was well done. I thought it just was very, like, it was kind of trite. There were a lot of tropes that I had seen time and time again. It reminded me a lot of some made-for-TV movies that I had seen. And so I was kind of, Boo Radley, he's yawning over here. He's like, that book bored me. It did kind of bore me. There were a lot of parts that I was really bored with. I'm gonna be very interested to see what happens to the sequel of that book, which I will read, because I like The Devouring Gray enough that I would want to kind of find out what happens with the storyline. But it just, I did not get what everybody else got from that book. In all honesty, I didn't. So, and I actually, it was interesting because I was watching a video from Spence, the Common Spence, and he was like listening to one and reading the other, or he doing something, he was doing them both at the same time. And I thought that Devouring Gray, in comparison to Truly Devious, I didn't mention that. See, that was in my head, but I didn't mention that. But The Devouring Gray compared to Truly Devious, like, I don't know, like, really, I don't know that I could compare the two. They're not really comparable. They're very different books. But at the same time, if, like, I mean, one is definitely a 5 and one's definitely a 3 to me. I mean, and Devouring Gray is definitely the 3. It just wasn't that exciting for me to read. Do I think that a lot of other people would really find it great? Yes. And it's just maybe more their thing. I'm not big into the whole world building thing. I thought a lot of it was very vague. It just, I don't know. It just wasn't my thing. It was a big disappointment to me. Okay, number 6, biggest surprise. Okay, let's see. You know what? Okay, this is from my book club. So Peter's book club is listed below. I have a book club. We're 1,600 members strong, and we're doing a year of true crime. The book club is co-hosted by my dear friend, Mel, who has a bookstagram called GingerGonzoReads, and it's listed below. You can go follow her. I think the biggest surprise for me, was reading the book Columbine. It really educated me about things that I did not know to be true. I think a lot of things that I thought about the entire Columbine incident that I believe to be true because of what I had seen in the media or pop culture, you know, that had made, they had alluded to certain things that actually were not true. So that book was really good for me to read, as well as to personalize the victims in that, I think, and to humanize the story. One of the things that came out of that for me, and I think in looking at the world in a different way, was that the kids at Columbine hated Columbine being referred to as Columbine. They were like, most of them did. A lot of them said this, that this is our high school. It's not just an incident that happened in the world. And, you know, and it made me really, really think about how we, like, look at events that happened, you know, like 9/11 and things like that, or like, I mean, even going way back in time, like the Titanic, you know, I mean, it's not just, like, it's more than just the name of that incident, you know, and it was a way for them to kind of reclaim their school, and it was neat when you saw that in the book, and then I watched the interviews afterwards and stuff. The other thing I will say is I was greatly surprised when I read Killer Clown for our book club by John Wayne Gacy. A lot of what we've read in my book club has really surprised me. But when I read Killer Clown about John Wayne Gacy, it really, really surprised me. It was a lot of things I didn't know. The way that homophobia was in the 70s, even with the police investigations, really surprised me. How far we've come since then. You know, I was born in 72. I didn't come out until 1990, 29 years this year. 29 years last 2 weeks ago I came out. And, you know, to see how far we've come in society, because homosexuality, homophobia was a huge part of that book. And to see, you know, like victims being scared to come out because of that and talk about their incidents that had happened with John Wayne Gacy and things like that were very interesting to me. And that we're living in a different society today, for the better, I think. So those were two surprises to me, but really more from, like, information that was in the books. Okay, favorite new author, debut, or new to you? Taylor Jenkins Reid. I would have to say is I'm getting ready to read Daisy, the new one that she came out with. So that's one of my new favorites. Okay, newest fictional crush. I don't get fictional crushes on people, but I have to say this, okay? And maybe it's because Matt Dillon played him on the TV show, and he's like, you know, my age generation and stuff, but reading The Pines by Blake Crouch, like, Ethan is just such, he's like the main character. He's like just such, I don't know. He's what we need in these kind of Blake Crouch mystery thrillers. But Blake Crouch always, like, has really great characters. His main character in Recursion, who I can't even think of his name now, I don't know why, but, like, the main characters were so lovable in there. And, you know, it just, you kind of, like, had this dream of them being together when you were reading it and stuff like that. So I'm not somebody that really gets book crushes, honestly. Okay, newest favorite character. That's hard, because I would say Evelyn Hugo, but she's not a really likable character at times, and I think that's part of what I really, really like about her. Let me look in here and see. I mean, I love Stevie from Truly Devious, but I'd already read that before. I cannot remember. So I read The Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. I cannot remember the main character, so I don't know how I would possibly say that she's my favorite character, but I, like, bawled my eyes out at the end of that book. And if you've read the book, it is absolutely fantastic. I think I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I'm almost positive. Let me look and see. It was so well done. I really, really liked it. And I'm really ready for a sequel. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I think because it didn't have, like, some great meaning at the end of it for me, but it kind of did in retrospect. But the main character of that book was so lovable. You know, it talked about, like, sexuality issues were really important to the name of the book. Although I think that that was one of the issues that I actually had with the book, which is funny in retrospect that I am like, that's one of the things that I kind of liked about the book. I don't know. Sexuality was fluid to the main character. And, but I think that it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the sequel. I said something about it didn't feel like there was going to be a sequel, but I was hoping that there would be. And somebody messaged me and said that he's actually working on a sequel right now. So I would be really excited to read that book. And I don't remember. But other than that, I would say that Evelyn Hugo is probably my new favorite character. I mean, what she endured in her life was just unbelievable. And I think as just a really good example of a strong, empowered woman, that as well. Okay, let's see. A book that made you cry. Oh my God, you guys. I cried in almost like every book that I've read this year. Oh, I have to tell you, my new favorite character, I'm sorry, is I read these 3 graphic novels. They're books, and by Esther Pearl Watson, and they're called Unlovable, and I read all 3 of them, and it's about Tammy Pierce. Tammy Pierce is my new favorite character of 2019. She is so hilarious, you guys, and she's such a loser, and I just relate to her so much when I was growing up, because I was such a loser too, and I just wanted to fit in, and you know, I mean, it's just sometimes life is just that simple. We would just want to fit in. I was thinking about the movie last night, Can't Buy Me Love. My husband and I were talking about the movie Heathers, and I was like, oh, the main Heather, she was also in Can't Buy Me Love. Whatever happened to that actress, you know? And that movie, Can't Buy Me Love, I think is a good example if you've ever seen it. It's such a great movie. Good summer movie, too. it's a good example of, I think there's a lot of us inside that just want to be popular, even though maybe the grass is not always, you know, greener on the other side. But when I was in high school, there was a part of me that really yearned to fit in and to be part of. And Tammy Pierce is so that. I mean, she's so fantastic. And she's just kind of like, she doesn't know that she's a loser, which I love. And I had a friend like that. And my friend ended up going on, and I kind of make jokes about this friend of mine on my main channel, Misty, that's who it is. Misty was kind of Tammy, but like Misty didn't really know that she was kind of a loser, like the rest of us kind of knew we didn't fit in, you know? And I know that word is like, people are like, oh, you're calling everybody a loser. No, like, I mean, I knew I didn't fit in, right? And I mean, we called ourselves a bunch of freaks. So Tammy kind of knows that she is that, you know, or she doesn't know that she is that, just like my friend didn't. And I think that's great, you know, like when you're just happy with what you're doing and you're content with that, even though you kind of want to fit in more, you know what I mean? Like she always wants a boyfriend. So I love Tammy Pierce is my new favorite character. This is getting long. Okay. Oh, I said a book that made me cry. Let's see. Well, Recursion made me cry. I cried in Killer Clown about John Wayne Gacy. At the very end of it, the investigator comes back and he does like an epilogue and he talks about like what happened when they went their separate ways and that they were all close together and that they had like formed this bond. And then when the investigation was over, they had been working on it so closely together that they all like went, you know, their separate ways and started spending time with their families and stuff. And this was on the heels of me just like judging this pageant. And it was really sad to me because I like missed my co-judges that I had done this pageant with, you know, we were together every day for a week. And so I was reading that book at the same time, and when I got to that part, I just started bawling because I recognized that need for, you know, companionship, I think, is what I recognized in reading that book. See, I always get weird stuff out of books, right? Okay, hold on, I'm looking at my Audible, I don't even know why. A book that made you happy. Well, the Tammy Pierce books made me happy because they're so hilarious. But a book that made me happy. Well, Brave Face by Sean David Hutchinson, I related so much to it. So it's his autobiography of coming out. Sean David Hutchinson that wrote We Are the Ants. I related to so much of it. So it made me really, really happy, but there was a lot of it that was really sad too. I'm trying to see. God, there's not really any other book set. I mean, I read such dark books. Well, I liked how Recursion ended, so I think that made me happy. Okay, why do I keep on going into Audible? I don't know why. Okay, most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. Most beautiful book. The Tammy Pierce books, they're beautifully, they're graphic novels, and they're like this big, and they're pink, green, and orange, and the drawings inside of them are absolutely fantastic, and they're just so unique, and I see her in my head right now with her crazy hair, and she's always, like, she does these, like, it'll just be a full page, and it'll be like pimple, and she'll, like, have an arrow to it that says, like, pimple, and it'll say another arrow, and it'll say, like, bad skin. It's just hilarious. The drawings are fantastic. Okay, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Well, I need to read 80 books by the end of the year. I don't really care what 80 books those are. I am so tempted to go to the, like, just the library and sit in the children's section and just go through, like, children's books until I read 80 books. And I can just get it out of my system and go on and read what I want to read. But I know it's not about hitting that goal, but it kind of is at the same time. So anyway, that's what I'm freaking out mid-year. It's like, if I were to read as many books for the rest of the year as I did this year, I would read 40, which is more than the 33 that I think I read last year, but not as many as the 62 that I read the year before. And I want to read 100 books. There's no reason why I shouldn't read 100 books. I was just talking to somebody that I met the other night, and she told me she's a school librarian, and she told me that she reads 26 books a month. Last month she read 26 books. I was like, oh my God. She's like, well, I'm always like reading an audio book or listening to an audiobook and reading like a physical copy book. And I go, yeah, me too. And I'm not reading 26 books in a month. But so that just proves that it can be done. It just proves that it can be done. Anyway, are you guys freaking out? Mid freak out, booktube freak out, whatever. Anyway, I love you guys, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.